You don't see me.
To the late night load. The late night load. Welcome to the late night load. Late night load.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Late Night Load. And I'm your host, Web C. And tonight we're just going to be doing a filler episode, just talking about some things, bringing up the past. I got a couple images I can share with you guys, that we got free copyrights on. These are free copyrights. This is some of the stuff we can talk about on, let's talk about this. This is the comment brought to you by Newsweek, blah, blah, blah. All right. We'll get back to those things. Let's first talk about what's going on in the Middle East. It's very weird. There's a couple things. Now, about 9-10 months ago, one of the first things that was happening was this weird river appeared, just going downhill. And as you get closer to it, you're like, what's going on? And once you finally get close enough to it, it's actually fish flipping over fish. And like, they're bringing just enough water with them to migrate over the desert. It's really weird. Once again, people are saying, "Oh, Bible prophecy fulfilled." Blah blah blah. No clue. Have no clue what's going on with that. Anyways, yeah, we got super bright stuff, and now you guys can kind of see what's going on my workstation. So that was one of the first things, and then Leprechaun messages me, and he's like, "Hey, man, have you heard or checked this out?" And he told me, he's like, this, water just like pouring from the sand in the middle of the desert in Saudi Arabia. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I've been watching that, but I haven't I've been doing a little bit of that wait and see research, like what's really going on here. Has anybody got any idea what the deal is? And from what I've dug up so far, what I know is there's like one of the guys who's in charge of the country or whatever, the ruler. He pays to make it rain once a week in that country. So when you pay to make weather happen that much in a country, you're making a change in the ecosystem in that country. I mean, you're spending enough money to make it rain in the whole country once a week. So 4 times a month, guaranteed, it's going to rain. And, I'm thinking that the aqueducts underneath the desert have gotten too full. And as the ground shifts and stuff, it creates pressure. I think one of those pressure systems may have pushed up. Now, it could be biblical prophecy. Who knows? We're getting there. Don't really know much about it. So let's get my other handy dandy device out. And let's look up biblical prophecy. Biblical prophecy. All right. So this is from the Bible Gateway, and I quote Isaiah 35. Now, this is weird. I don't usually quote the Bible, but this is why we're talking about it and stuff. Quote, even the wilderness and desert rejoice in those days. The desert will blossom with flowers. Yes, there will be an abundance of flowers and singing and joy. The deserts will become as green as the Lebanon mountains, as lovely as Mount Carmel's pastures and Sharon's meadows. For the Lord will display his glory there, the excellence of our God. With this news brings cheer to all discouraged ones. Encourage those who are afraid. Tell them, be strong, fear not, for your Lord is coming to destroy your enemies. He is coming to save you. And when he comes, he will open the eyes of the blind and unstop the ears of the deaf. So this water from the desert and in that specific region uh, is saying that is a prophecy fulfillment for the second coming. It is saying the Lord will come to us again in the flesh. That is what they're saying this means. I don't know how else to say that. That sounds heavy. I don't really talk about this stuff a lot on this aspect because a lot of people don't want to get offended. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to read it per quote. I'm not going to try and translate it. It is what it is. It said what it said. Okay, we all have common sense. To continue reading, it basically says after the flood has come from the desert, a highway will be constructed, and it will lead directly into Zion, and the Lord will walk with you along that. It says the Lord walks with you, or will travel with you along that road, and those who are of evil intention will not be allowed to access the road. Will not have connection to the road. That's crazy. Um, let's see what we got there. So let's take it into context, right? Let's go. Okay, so um, um, it says basically the lead in is basically stating that the Lord does not. In this text, it states Isaiah chapter or Isaiah 34 verse 16 and 17. It says the Lord does not make mistakes, and therefore he will address all things, all issues. um, and uh, and then he has surveyed and subdivided the land and decided it to those doleful creatures, and they shall possess it forever from generation to generation. Okay, so we're in the place. It's become the haunt of jackals. So basically, this is a lot of this is the oh wow, this is if we go back and read chapter 34, it all talks. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Now this is okay. So this is I'm just gonna read it out loud, and then we will talk about it. Okay, so like I said, going back and just checking out. I went and read the last two. We'll start at the beginning of 34. Okay, this is Isaiah 34, Living Bible. Okay, 34. Come here and listen, O nations of the earth. Let the world and everything in it hear my words, for the Lord is enraged against the nations. His fury is against their armies. He will utterly destroy them and deliver them to slaughter. Their dead will be left unburied, and their stench of rotting bodies will fill the land. The mountains will flow with their blood. At that time, the heavens above will melt away and disappear, just like a rolled up scroll, and the stars will fall as leaves and ripe fruit from the trees. And when my sword has finished its work in the heavens, then watch, for it will fall upon Edom. The people will have doomed. The people I have doomed. The sword of the Lord is sated with blood. It is gorged with flesh as though used for slaying lambs and goats for sacrifice. For the Lord will slay a great sacrifice in Edom, and make a mighty slaughter there. The strongest will perish, young boys and veterans too. The land will be soaked with blood, and the soil made rich with fat. For it is the day of vengeance, the year recomps for what Edom has done to Israel. The streams of Edom will be filled with burning pitch, and the ground will be covered with fire. This judgment on Edom will never end. Its smoke will rise up forever. The land will lie deserted from generation to generation. No one will live there anymore. There the hawks and porcupines will live, and owls and ravens. For God will observe the land and find it worthy of destruction. He will test its nobles and find them worthy of death. It will be called the land of nothing, and its princes soon will all be gone. Thorns will overrun the palaces, nettles will grow in its forts, and it will become the haunt of jackals and a home of ostriches. The wild animals of the desert will mingle there with wolves and hyenas. Their howls will fill the night. There, the night monsters will scream at each other, and the demons will come there to rest. There, the owl will make her nest and lay her eggs. She will hatch her young and nestle them beneath her wings. And the kites will come, each one with its mate. Search the book of the Lord and see that all he will do. Not one detail will he miss. Not one kite will be there without a mate. For the Lord has said it, and his spirit will make it all come true. He has surveyed and subdivided the land, and deeded it to those doleful creatures. They shall possess it forever, from generation to generation. Now, hold. I'm gonna read into 35. Okay. Even the wilderness and desert will rejoice in those days. The desert will blossom with flowers. Yes, there will be an abundance of flowers, singing in joy. The deserts will become as green as Lebanon mountains, as lovely as the mountain. Okay, so we've read all that, right? Now, so as you know, as the pastures, the excellency of our God, with the news bring cheer, all discouraged ones. Okay, and the main road will go through the desert land, and it will be named the Holy Highway. No evil hearted man may walk upon it. God will walk there with you. Even the most stupid cannot miss the way. No lion will lurk along its course, nor will there be any other dangers. Only the redeemed will travel there. These, the ransom of the Lord, will go home along that road to Zion, singing the songs of everlasting joy for them. All sorrow and sighing will be gone forever. Only joy and gladness will be there. So this prophecy, now we're talking about now, you know, to give everybody the go back again where we started this episode is we started talking about the Middle East and how there are rivers gushing from the middle of a desert. No understanding. It's pretty hard to get a grasp on where this water's coming from. You know, it's a desert. Water just doesn't magically shoot out of a desert. Not like that anyways. Not the way this video looks. It looks really weird. So this biblical prophecy, what this prophecy aligns with for this whole thing is it says when this starts it says when the rivers start running red with the color of blood is when the prophecy begins. And that when this moment happens is when the destruction will be gone, the highway will be created, and we will have a road to salvation where, I mean, it'll be our road to salvation. That's what it says. That's a lot of deep thought. It's a lot of deep thinking. Like I said, from the scientific standpoint, where I lie a lot of my stuff heavily in science. However, I do believe that the Bible has two parts to it that are should be heeded. One, the Bible is a history book. It has history in it. Two, the Bible has a lot of prophecies in it. And these prophecies are important. They tell you things. They they don't tell you how to live your life through these prophecies, but what they're telling you is they're telling you the way the world is going to turn, the way en masse things are going to happen, and really it makes it so you understand that these things that are happening are out of your control, so you don't go blind with rage against your religion. Like they a big part of that is what I'm seeing is like, so when they tell you this prophecy is going to happen and all those lives that they talk about in this prophecy that are lost, well, if you think about it, quite a bit of the princes and kings and everything from that general area of the world, they've all gone in the past 20 years here. They've all gone. War has gotten rid of them. War has taken them away. So think about that. They've all gone, and there's hasn't been a very good replacement. It's been a very heavy power vacuum there. So there's been no replacement for leadership, and in that way, that's a very strange thing uh, to bring up and add into this conversation. To note or to make note is I've been paying attention, and a lot of those big leaders they've not been replacing them. They've been dividing up the spoils and making lesser rulers instead of like a big ruler. Now there's lesser people ruling in smaller sections. They don't talk about it en masse because then they do have still like a crowned prince, and they'll call him the crown prince, and he'll never be the king or the sheik or the shiet. He'll never be that, and that's in that region. And other parts of the world we have elected officials and stuff, but over in that part of the world, they still not all of their government is that way. So it's very interesting. These prophecies, I don't like to dwell too much on them, but I do like to read into them, look into them, and see what it says. And boy, I'm telling you what, that was a heavy nutcracker right there to drop on everybody, wasn't it? So I guess that's the next thing that we got to pay attention to is we're gonna start looking for um uh a great road or a great something is going to be built within the vicinity of where these floods are happening. So we're gonna keep our mind open, keep our eyes open. We're gonna keep looking at that. Um, so that's just gonna be one of those things. So we'll put that in the notes and we'll keep looking at that. Maybe we'll write it on the whiteboard here. Uh, what should we say? What should we write on the whiteboard? What should we write? All right. I know it's crazy, huh? This is what we got going on. Look up weird creatures during oil spills, mermaid war. It's kind of weird that it's called the Holy Highway. That's something that's really weird. I've got other stuff going on here. This is called geometry math or geometrical math. This is the one of the works I'm doing. This is uh, this is 8 cubes. This is 8 cubes, and we are seeing the dimensional intersect if we stack them a certain way. They're clear. When we stack them a certain way, it creates a dimensional intersect. This dimensional intersect creates this four-pointed helioscope. It's not necessarily a torus; it's more of a helioscope. So, um, one side's always dark, one side's light, kind of a thing. And then along with that, a three-dimensional gyroscopic um, rotation is happening. So this here and here, and their balancers are spinning in a like this, and then this here and here, and its balancer is spinning like this. Um, to give you a different idea of what it looks like when you put 8 cubes together and bend them to look through and see the notion of what we're actually talking about. Yes, four four D. That's what we're talking about. This is the fourth dimension. We're talking about it. So to break it down, when I was younger, a great scientist who I really highly respect still, um, he taught me something. He taught me something really crazy. And let me see if I can find a piece of paper for us to use. Here we go. Got a piece of paper for us to use. All right, so he taught me something really crazy. And what his crazy thing is that he taught me was, okay, let's not draw on anything we're not supposed to be drawing on. All right, there we go. Oh, hey, look at that. I drew a cute little car. Like one of my favorite things, like an El Camino. We'll work on this page. Okay, so one of the things that I was taught, and move down a little bit so you can see, and we'll work right here in this corner. So one of the things I was taught was a dot. If you take a dot, you make a dot. Now, this dot lives on a two-dimensional surface, the paper. So this is a one-dimensional object. It has no up, no down, no left, no right. It's just a dot. It's all you can see. It's all you'll ever see. It's just a dot. Now it can live in a room like this, and then it'll have a doorway here that'll open. You guys can't really see. We're gonna switch that up then. Get you guys a marker. All right. So here's our two-dimensional dot, and here's a door that swings out. Now this dot can move in 2 dimensions. Can't move any other way. You can only move 2 dimensions. Okay. Now, if we take that dot and turn it into a line, that now becomes a two-dimensional object. That's now not just 1 point, it's 2 points, it's got 2 dimensions, 2 points. All right, then we have to say that two-dimensional object lives in a three-dimensional space. Okay, so, and then three-dimensional space would look like this, and now this thing can move in 3 dimensions. It can move up, down, left, right, backwards, forwards, right? It can move. But what they never talk to you about is this next one. They just assume that the physics has to be the same for a two-dimensional object as it would be for a three-dimensional object. And I find that is where the misstep is. So when we take a three-dimensional object now, because we have a two-dimensional, one-dimensional, two-dimensional. So two-dimensional, three-dimensional. Now, if we take a a three-dimensional object, say we turn that line into a cylinder, right? Now we have a three-dimensional object. Now, that cylinder has to live in the fourth dimension. And you're like, well, why did you draw that? This shape. This shape represents the fourth dimension. So this, to give you the idea, um, you know, everything dimensionalizes like this. Okay, everything dimensionalizes like this. Or what you would also call it is, let's take just the simplest way is this is 3D. This is one section. So this would be like having an X, a Y, and a Z axis, right? So this is a 3D area. Well, to add the other three axes, you're actually adding a negative Z, right? A negative X, and a negative Y. Why do we have to name them negative? Hear me out. Just think about this. And you're going to come to a conclusion that this is crazy. As soon as I tell you how this all works, watch. Okay, so instead of giving it the negatives, cross that off. Okay, so now let's come over here. And so we've got this, right? And we'll just draw this one here with that one right there, right? So we'll still call this one X, Y, and Z, right? Then why don't we just call this one A, B, and C, right? A, B, and C. So we got A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z. Here is the point, right? This is what's going to get everybody totally crazed. This is where I'm going with it. Okay, this proves the Big Bang is real, and I'm going to tie it all together for you when we do it. Okay, so all of these, right? So that you'll just count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so to 10. So that's to 10. So that's to 10. So that's to 10. Why did that have to be a negative before? Doesn't make sense to draw it as a negative when you can leave it as a positive. And here's why. All right. This point right here, what we're going to call singularity. Well, if we call this point the singularity, what else do we know is supposed to have come from singularity? Well, what we say happened was we call it the Big Bang, right? And the only way to prove the Big Bang is if we can see far enough away to prove the Big Bang, right? But why are we looking like that? Why does that matter? So here's what's going to make sense about it, right? So if we're right here on this arm of A and say we're at 7, right? But that's going to be 7 billion or whatever. Well, actually our our solar system for sure is 21.7 billion light years old, or 21.7 billion years old, with a big B, 21.7 billion years old. Right? We know that for a fact. That's recent satellites that we've put into space with telescopes on them have given us the new measurements, and it says that that's how old our solar system. The old number was like 16 billion. Okay, so we can still say 16 billion, right? Now, the reason why we have to either pick one of these two numbers is because it's very important. So this is 16 billion from the singularity. Okay, so that's where we are. Now, we've developed a new telescope just recently in the last 3 years. Well, we've been working on it for over 20. We just got it into space in the last year here, known as the JWST. Now, what that telescope showed us was way over here on the arm of Z, there's a galaxy that shouldn't have existed. And that also puts on Z, that puts it at that puts the measurement between here and here at 21, 21.7, leaving the remainder of this to be 21 was 5.7. So yeah, 5.4. So this would be like 5.4 uh, billion light years, right? 5.4 billion light years away from the singularity in this direction. Now, how would we prove that that's right? Well, the next thing we do is we would look again at another star from our star at another star here, which we did with the JWST. And we came up with another measurement. And this measurement was 22 billion light years or something. So once again, ours, if we're 16 billion years from the singularity, these two galaxies or these 2 points would actually be a lot closer. Like, they would really be like right here and right here compared if we were going off pure perfect measurement. But we're not. We're just using these as reference points right now. So, what this is stating and what this is showing is that the center point, the current center point, if you were to take 8 facets of point and draw 8 facets from the center, you could create any calculation you needed to navigate the universe. That calculation can only be done if our space that we live in, not the earth, but our space that we are traveling through, where nothing else is, there's nothing there, it's just dead space. That stuff, it's the fourth dimension. It's the only way. The reason why I'm saying this is we go back to what Dr. Carl Sagan said. And Dr. Sagan said that a 1D object in a 2D space can only move two-dimensionally. A 3D object in a 2D object in a 3D space can move three-dimensionally. But a 3D object in a 4D space can jump through the air. That's the calculation. That's the final calculation. That's all you need to know, right? Is jump. R-E-G-H. Okay, so a 3D object in a 4D, the demonstration of what makes a 3D object live in the fourth dimension is that a 3D object can jump through the air. We can throw a ball through the air. We have to be able to calculate in a four-dimensional motion where that ball could land or hit or strike. Baseball players, well, yes, their main learning aperture is geometry and trigonometry. If they were to apply fourth dimension novelties to their swings, they could possibly gain more control on where the ball goes to stop themselves from getting out on shorter hits, meaning that they could hit a curve and people, it's really not as complex as it sounds, but this is the way. So that's what I'm saying. And so if the Big Bang happened here, the Big Bang happened right here on this dot, and if the Big Bang happened right here on that dot, we flew out this way for 16 billion years. We've been flying out this way. Our matter, everything that makes us, has been going this way. We have observed two galaxies that state that they are farther away from, or they are farther outside of our original vision sight. So before with Hubble, we had a 16 billion light year vision. Now we can see 20 to 27 billion light years away. That's how far we can see with this new technology. That's immense. That's really far. And it's really good that we can see that far. But so with us being able to see that far and actually being able to view those two galaxies, well, we're viewing them. We're viewing the light that they first gave off 20 billion years ago. That light, that's how long it took for that light to come to us. So 22 billion years ago, they were primordial. These were primordial galaxies 22 billion years ago. Also, that's something we have to talk about is this is when the light that's coming at us from some specific place, that light, it's not diminishing. What it is it's got to grow and signal because it's young, it's early, it's not directed, and it's not as powerful, it's not concentrated and coming out like we have brighter stars and stuff that come out with a much heavier notion. Well, like I said, so I believe that we live in space, the fourth dimension. Now, when you're like, well, but we live on Earth. We live on a planet. Well, you're right. We live on a planet. But what is that planet? A three-dimensional object. That's what that planet is. That's a three-dimensional object. If we were to just sit here and you know, there's your Earth. There it goes. So it's just a three-dimensional object that we're looking at, right? So, and all right, so this shape that I was showing you over here, this original shape, what that meant, what that's all about is, like I said, you take 8 points and you put them together, and then you bend everything else around those 8 points. You shift things around and you see what can be moved and stuff. Well, what happens is if you do the right motion, you end up getting this giant flower over here. This is the outer walls of the 4 boxes on this side, and then there's 4 boxes on the back side. It makes 8 boxes, 8 points, all right here, right? So if you pull these boxes into certain directions, you start creating these other dimensional gaps between the two, but you're still keeping this point here. It's a really crazy effect. Anyways, when I got done, the mathematics pumped out this symbol right here, this black and blue thing that I got. It's kind of blurry. You can't see it that well. That's okay. You don't need to see it super well. But just know, this symbol came from here. If you do this same symbol, you should come up with this. This should be what you come up with. And then over here is just another way to simulate the 8 squares, if you can see them. And then the dots are the intersectionalities of the fourth dimension within the 8 squares. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4 on top, or 4 in the front, 4 in the back. And then, like I said, the dots, those are the intersectionalities. And the intersectionalities are just saying, here's where this section touches this section and what that can do. And we're still exploring all the meaning of that, but there's a way to cut a piece of food to represent the fourth dimension. They call it. I've done it with a potato in culinary school, so that is a thing. That is a thing. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about things. All this science that I told you does not break any of the physics or Newtonian laws, nothing. It just follows in line with Dr. Sagan started with. He just, for some reason, when he got to three-dimensional objects, he got confused. He was like, well, where do I put them? He didn't know. Because he was like, well, we're 3D, but we live on a 3D object. So is Earth the third dimension? No. Earth is a 3D object, three-dimensional object, not the 3D, but it's a 3D, just like any other planet we have or any other mass. If we take an airplane and fly an airplane, it's a 3D object, right? It doesn't become its own dimension. We don't register it that way. So we have to look at it the same way when we look at what is that 3D object moving through? It's moving through the fourth dimension, and it's using quantum motion to do it. And how we know it's using quantum motion is because in quantum mechanics, the whole effect of my hand having a trail on camera should be, you know, that's quantum motion. That's my hand being somewhere faster than light can produce the image for my hand to show you with the camera, or even in reality, I can move my hand and make it look like it's streaming. That's called quantum motion. Okay. Why is it called quantum motion? Why is it not called tri motion or triantum motion or whatever? What would you use the word three to create the say three in motion? Tri motion, quantum motion. Why is it quantum? Quantum means four. Quant. So think about that. Hmm. Quantum physics, quantum mechanics. So once you graduate from trigonometry and geometry, you go right into algebraic extensions, algebraic expressions. You go to calculus, and then you go into quantum world. So there's nothing else about the 3D. There's no third dimension math. It doesn't exist. We're trying to force it and it's not working. We gotta stop that. That's the biggest problem. Is we gotta stop trying to force the three-dimensional math to work. Instead of mapping out a three-dimensional object based on instead of mapping out a three-dimensional object based on the XYZ, map the object out, just hear me, map the object out based on the six different, program it, label it, map it out that way, and it'll still work. It'll still, as long as as long as you map, but put the center of the can at the middle of the eight boxes, at that middle point of the eight boxes, and then program it that way. And then, or hell, I'll give you one easier. This will be the best experiment. Create the fourth dimensional program. Take a three-dimensional object and set it at the center. If you can't read all the points and recreate that object outside in another 4D object without hitting copy and paste, if you just copied or if you just read all the points on the object, the 3D object inside the 4D space, and then you transfer it over to a blank 4D space, and you transfer the new object in there just by the calculations, it should match up perfectly. There shouldn't be any need for an adjustment like you usually have to do with three dimensionals when you're only thinking 3D. It's just another way for me to express that. Like that's all I can say is it's the whole concept is I found that the earth is moving through something, and if the earth is 3D, space is not flat. Okay, like I think space is a bubble. It's a bubble, and we can break a bubble down into billions and billions of sections, but the best way to break it down is into the fourth dimension. And if we took a bunch of bubbles and put them together and created a multiverse, well, then that would be the fifth dimension, right? Because then we would have a universe, which is a four-dimensional object, living inside the fifth dimension. And the fifth dimension being the multiverse. Time is not a dimension. Okay, so for everybody out there that's going to give me oh, but what about time and blah blah blah, they say time is the fourth dimension or whatever, and no, time is a construct that is not perfect to every situation. I'll give you the reason why. Time on Earth does not pass the same as time on Jupiter. We would not calculate time the same. A minute would not be the same on Earth as it is on Jupiter. Like just a year. Okay, take just a year. Jupiter's year is not the same as Earth's year. So that's time. Time doesn't match up then, right? So we would have to say, well, Jupiter has an orbit of so many of Earth's years. And then, Neptune has an orbit of so many Earth years. So we measure everything, we watch it go around, and we base it off of Earth. But here's the thing. Earth isn't the Earth isn't the what do we want to call it? Earth isn't the constant. We could say time on Earth is the constant for a possibility of finding life. If we watched for planets that had a orbital rotation exactly matching ours, meaning if we found a planet with a moon and watched the planet spin in exactly 24 hours around its sun, 365 days, if we found that, we would have an exact match of Earth, and we could say, yes, we can create life on that planet because it has the three factors we need for it to create life. It has a moon, it has Earth, the Earth is rotating, and it rotates around its sun. Those are the three things we would need to know. Um, so that's the better way to look for life if you want to know. I'm sorry. I'm just dropping a whole bunch of stuff on you guys tonight. I'm not trying to. I'm just going off on my own little tangent, my own little world. After that whole talking about the prophecies and stuff, I wanted to get some things out there. Like, hey, maybe if we corrected our math. So that's the biggest thing. I think the calculations are all wrong because we're calculating based out of the third dimension with the assumption of third dimension as space. And I feel like we should be looking at space as if though it were the fourth dimension with 8 quadrants. Um, and we could break the earth down in such a way to we could, say the earth and anything inside the earth could be experiencing a fourth dimensional situation as well, because if we break the earth into 8 pieces and they can do the same thing, but the only thing that's different with that is when I'm talking about space, I'm talking about something that's absent of mass. And when we're talking about earth, it's a 3D object and it has mass, and that's where I'm differentiating space and 3D object. Is okay, so the object has to live inside of a space that matches its congruent motion or its possibility of motion, and therefore we don't even move through space in a three-dimensional motion. It is really hard to keep explaining this, but I'm gonna. So the next step to explain this, to further back this up, is when you first look at the way the Earth spins, it doesn't spin like a ball like this. It's actually curved and it spins like this at this angle. So if it does that, it spins like this. Why does it spin like that? What is the cause of that? Well, the reason why the Earth spins the way it spins, we could assume that its magnetic poles and stuff were all pulled and everything this way and that way by different planetoids in the sun, creating it to go off kilt. Or we could say that the Earth is actually spinning in a helix behind the sun as the sun spins around the galaxy, as the galaxy slowly spins and floats away as well. Now, how many times did I say something was spinning in that sentence? The Earth is spinning, the sun is spinning, the galaxy is spinning. So wouldn't the universe possibly spin in a big giant ocean of other universes? And then we go on. The multiverse could have a quantum verse, or what science fiction calls a quantum verse, or the uh, I would actually want to label it like the primordial realm is where I would want to label it, like where all matter goes to be invented and shaped. is what I would call it, because then you can control everything. Blah blah blah. I don't know. I would more give it that type of a definition. But anyways, it's been great hanging out with you guys tonight. On Thursday, it's going to be a short night, and then on Friday, it's going to be a long episode where we really dig in and talk about things. So I hope everybody reviews this episode tonight, because this is what we're talking about for the rest of the week. Plenty of stuff to blow your minds. So thank you guys for coming out, hanging out with us. I am Web C. We are sponsored by Clarksville Hobby Depot LLC. Head on over there and check them out. And have a great night.
To the Late Night L.O.A.D. The Late Night L.O.A.D.